Mount Toubkal is a majestic Moroccan mountain that stands tall above the Atlas mountain range, which recounts legendary stories in Greek heritage. From its summit, it overlooks all Arab world countries with its timeless charm and natural splendor. The mountain has long been protected by its predatory animals, including lions, leopards, and bears. Unfortunately, these animals disappeared during the Roman period, according to rumors, as they were featured in circuses and gladiator games, and later due to rampant hunting in the 20th century. Morocco is now focusing on preserving Atlas lions in zoos, despite my reservations about keeping animals in captivity, which I prefer to call animal prisons. This measure may be necessary to safeguard the lineage of these lions. I hope that in the future, as their numbers increase, they can be relocated to reserves with natural food sources, like wild gazelles, and that human activity will be kept away from their habitats. My journey began in the city of Oujda in April 2017, when I noticed an advertisement on Facebook for a local tour company. I didn't hesitate to join the trip, as the idea of climbing the highest mountain in the Arab world had been on my mind for years, and the time had come for an adventure. I boarded a bus from Oujda to the capital, Rabat, where I met a group of mountain climbers. The group consisted of about 13 or 14 people, most of whom were women. Under the cover of night, we set off in a small bus toward the enchanting village of Imlil, located near Marrakesh. Early the next morning, we arrived in the village, where we entered a large traditional hotel and rested for a short period before having breakfast. The weather was cold for spring, and the village was simple, beautiful, and serene, as if it had emerged from a scene depicting the charm of rural life, reminiscent of the anime The Trap Family story, that the 1990s generation used to watch. After a dose of caffeine, I went outside to breathe in some fresh air while waiting for the group and the guide who had welcomed us in Rabat. If I remember correctly, the guide was from Taza. I found him speaking with the mountain guide who came from the village. The guide was full of energy and ready for the climb. The group left the hotel and our journey to the summit began. We encountered some foreigners riding their mountain bikes, along with a few travelers and locals riding mules. The beginning was a long, flat path passing through several mountain villages. We walked in a single file, with the guide and the mountain guide at the front, followed by the women, then two couples, and the rest of the group, who were men. I was at the end of the group, allowing me to walk freely and enjoy the surrounding nature without disrupting the rhythm of the hike. The views around me were breathtaking. The green landscape surrounded me from all sides, with rivers flowing everywhere, and the sound of the rushing water added a magical touch to the journey. The path was indeed long, resembling the serpentine route that Son Goku took in Dragon Ball, but the beauty of the scenery made you forget the fatigue of the trek. The guide stopped and announced that the ascent would soon begin, and we should take a break to rest and get to know each other. I thought to myself that introductions should have been made at the start of the trip, not in the middle, but I didn't mind. Everyone began introducing themselves and sharing a bit about their backgrounds. The group was full of enthusiasm for the climb and reaching the summit. After several kilometers of walking, chatting with the mountain guide, and exchanging stories about the mountain villages, I asked him about a young man from the village who had rescued a Swiss woman on Mount Toubkal and had been featured in the media and international newspapers, and I wanted to take a commemorative photo with him. I thanked him for that. The meeting point was at a rest stop near a shrine known as Shamharauch. Legends say that he is a Jinn king with a court where he judges between humans and Jinn. I took a curious look around. There was a large white rock and, if I recall correctly, a small mosque nearby, with candles scattered here and there. There was no evidence of a court, judges, or lawyers from either world, just myths that some people still believe in. Afterwards, we arrived at a mountain refuge in the evening where we rested, had dinner, and went to sleep. It had been a somewhat exhausting day, but it was worth every bit of effort. We had to start the ascent at night to reach the summit before the sun's rays touched the mountain peak. The guide and the mountain leader woke up and prepared breakfast for us, which was shared with the group and some foreigners from various countries, including Spain and India. After that, the guide provided us with the necessary climbing equipment to prepare for the adventure. I left the hotel with a headlamp to explore the area. The night was freezing, as if you were inside an icy cave. The place was surrounded by snow and tents. I returned inside to wait for the group. After some time, we began the climb. The order was as it had been at the start. The guide and the mountain leader at the front, followed by the women, then the couples, and finally the men. However, things were different now. I couldn't tolerate the group's slow pace. The night provided no natural views, only distant lights. Frustrated by the slow pace, I decided to leave the group and move at my own pace. The mountain guide repeatedly warned me about the dangers of going alone, but I could see the path clearly towards the summit and felt there was no immediate danger, as even the predatory animals had disappeared long ago. I couldn't bear the group's slow pace any longer, so I left them behind without concern. It was truly liberating, walking quickly without having to follow orders or restrictions on how fast or slow to go or when to rest. The slope was covered in snow, and I realized that if I placed my foot in the wrong spot, I could fall to the ground before reaching the summit and no one would know until it was too late. I had made my decision and had to take responsibility for it. The path to the summit was relatively close, and the first light of dawn was beginning to appear. The expected happened, and I slipped several meters before I could plant my climbing pole firmly into the snow. The pole bent from the force of the slip, but if I hadn't had it, I would have fallen. I would have gone back to greet the group I left behind. I encountered Spanish climbers and talked to them throughout the path to the summit. Climbing with them was just as I had hoped, and even the topics we discussed were pleasant. We finally reached the summit, and what an achievement it was. I know it's not a scientific discovery, but whenever I see a mountain peak, my curiosity and love for adventure drive me to reach it. It's a captivating feeling that only those who love mountains and adventures can understand. The view from the summit was magnificent, making you feel like a peregrine falcon watching the earth from above. After enjoying the breathtaking view and reflecting on the grandeur of the mountains and their creator, I took photos with the Spaniards and then started the descent back to the mountain refuge. I returned to the hotel exhausted, as if I had come back from a war, especially since I hadn't climbed a mountain in a long time. I lay down and fell into a deep sleep. After a while, the group returned, and the mountain guide was impressed by what I had accomplished, despite a bit of scolding for not following orders. The journey was almost complete, but one of the people in the group chose to descend with me due to my faster pace and suggested joining him on future trips. He was a kind person and also quick on his feet, but we haven't met again since that trip. Mountain climbing is a beautiful hobby, meaningful, challenging, and adventurous for some. You feel as if you're Luffy on his way to find One Piece. For others, it's a needless fatigue. Human interests are diverse, which adds beauty to the world. There is a third category, those who are not mountain lovers and have no interest. Their only interest is to criticize what you do, like saying, "What's the point of that?" Or, "Why bother and exhaust yourself with climbing?" Or, even Capricorns climb mountains, as if mountain enthusiasts don't know that. But what they may not know is that even lions and leopards climb them. The answer to these questions is always, "You're right," as they don't understand someone's passion for something. And even if you climbed Mount Olympus, they would echo the same thing. Every person has his passion in life, so leave a good imprint in it. We will all leave, but we must always keep a dream in mind and work to achieve it, even if it takes a lot of time and effort. I hope you have benefited from this story and climbing journey, and that you continue to enjoy following new journeys and exciting explorations. Thank you for your time and interest.